Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about Marvel's new Ultimate Universe because I feel like I covered a lot of good stuff in my comparison video. Check that out here if you haven't seen it. And in that video, I kind of just went over what Marvel was doing correctly with that universe and what they had improved on. There's just a little bit that I wanted to add. Most importantly, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we can expect from the Ultimates book and the eventual direction of the universe as a whole. Also, last week at the time of recording this, they came out with a new issue for Free Comic Book Day. It kind of touched on a little bit more of what we'd be seeing from the Ultimates and what we can expect from that book. I also want to go back to the original Ultimate Universe #1 because there's going to be some pretty important stuff here. This issue starts after the Ultimate Invasion miniseries, and let me know if you want me to cover that story as well because that's also important. This issue basically takes place after Dr. Doom has been freed from the Maker's prison, and Tony Stark is basically continuing the work of his father as Iron Lad, and the first place that they go to start bringing this universe back to what it was is recruiting Thor, because he was one of the Ultimates. He's meant to be with this team, and unfortunately as of now he's been sitting in a cell on Asgard because he's apparently a traitor, a criminal of some sort. I'm not really sure why. We also find that in this universe, after the Maker has manipulated everything, Lady Sif is in charge of Asgard, and she's the one that's adamant on Thor staying in prison, and at the end of the day is the one standing in the way from him being free. But Thor is insistent on leaving with Iron Lad and Dr. Doom, but before he can feel comfortable doing that, obviously, he's Thor, he needs his hammer. So they come back, fight for that, take down the guards and Sif herself, and then we see that just like in the original Ultimate Universe, this Thor can teleport himself by holding his hammer up in the air and then, just being able to do it. So they do that to get out, and then Lady Sif actually follows them in. We then follow them back to Stark Tower, where Steve Rogers is still in the ice and is being kept there because they don't fully know how to free him properly without things going south. So they're talking it over, trying to figure out what the best way to free him would be before Lady Sif appears in the background and basically starts going on her whole thing again about how she's not gonna let Thor roam free. And this time Tony actually steps in to inform her about everything the Maker's done and about how this whole world is essentially a lie, that he doesn't need to be a prisoner because none of this is supposed to be happening the way it is in the first place. He informs Thor that he's meant to be king of Asgard. Doom then steps in to explain the rest, saying that the whole reason they're here, the whole reason they freed Thor, is because while the Maker is trapped in the city, they want to set the universe back to what it's supposed to be. That the whole reason the Maker came here is because he wanted to systematically erase the world's heroes from existence. That by denying them of the circumstances that would eventually transform them into who they were supposed to be, he was able to basically eradicate all the Marvel characters that should be in it. Like taking the spider away from Peter Parker before it could bite him so that he would never become Spider-Man, as we saw in Ultimate Invasion and then eventually Ultimate Spider-Man. Tony then explains that the reason Thor isn't king of Asgard right now is because he helped Loki kill Odin. To all of this, Thor says, "It is no small thing to realize that this pain I have nursed for years was not a sickness or a flaw, but instead a righteous anger. I am with you." And then they turn to Lady Sif after everything and ask her if she still wants to imprison Thor, if she doesn't want to set the universe right as it's supposed to be. And to this opportunity, she says, "I'll stick around for the ride." So just by explaining this ridiculous situation that they're in, they basically eradicated this beef between them, and now they have both of them on their side. So now this team is a team of 4, eventually 5 with Captain America on the way. They then bring these two up to speed on the intel and what the plan is for what they're going to do next. Doom starts telling them about intel that he found in the city before it was eventually sealed up and he escaped, saying that he went through the Maker's files and found a bunch of numbers that he didn't understand what they were for, and then he realized that they're actually storage codes to a repository hidden in Latveria. Now, the reason that they want to get into this repository and see what's in storage, we'll find out here in a minute, but basically they go to Latveria, they try and get in, the door is blocked off, and then Thor gets another great moment where he just breaks it open with lightning. They walk through, see absolutely no guards, no alarms go off, there's no security of any kind. With the Maker sealed away, the city closed off, and basically no one else left to be in charge and watch over the place. There's no security, so they're basically gonna get in and get out and it's gonna be super easy, right? Well, no, because it turns out there isn't just one repository, there's not just one storage container, there's a ton, there's hundreds, and there's really no way to get them all open and unlocked and carry them all with them back to Stark Tower. Tony then suggests maybe we can, teleport it out with Thor's hammer and do it exactly the same way. If we round them up, get them together, maybe you can teleport us and them back home all in one go. And Lady Sif is like, even with Mjolnir, there are limits access to the area that he can move. He can't get it all in one go, like all together like that. It's still too big. To which Tony says, "Can you do it?" Thor holds onto his hammer, gives him a serious look, and says, "It's an evil thing, the stealing of dreams, the work of demons and devils and souls that are damned, to make a world where men are chained to a future that is not their own. Obscenity. So can I do it? I am a god, and not bound by the limits of men. Of course I can." Just then, Thor is stabbed through the chest. Lady Sif calls out to him, and we see that it's actually Captain Britain, a member of the Maker's secret council. He absolutely backhands the f*** out of Lady Sif, slams Doom's face into the ground, and suddenly Tony is brought back face to face with one of the men who would cause his father's death by bowing to the Maker in the first place. "I know who you are, and what you secret rulers of the world have done," he says. Britain swings his sword at him and he blocks it. "It's going to end. And who's gonna end it? You? Whoever you might be?" Captain Britain asks. He then cuts through the faceplate of the armor and sees that it's Tony Stark. "Ah, I know that face. Good. I want you to remember it," and then slaps his palm right into his face and hits him with a massive hand beam, sending him flying back and screaming in pain. Thor is luckily conscious enough to teleport them and one repository out of there. Doom looks over the one repository that they escaped with, and we see a very familiar vial within it. Elsewhere, Captain Britain talks to the rest of the members of the Secret Council, telling them everything that happened, telling them that it was Tony Stark that actually blinded him and blew out one of his eyes. Hulk says, "The sun? Interesting. We've all been wondering about exactly how to deal with the vacuum of power in North America after Howard Stark's disappearance and Obadiah Stane's death. We've been wanting to claim it for ourselves, and I now see a path forward to doing that." We then see a massive machine, satellite thing out in space, hovering over North America. By committing the acts of a tyrant, or worse, those of a terrorist, Tony Stark has given us North America. And what do acts of terror yield? We then watch as the satellite absolutely destroys New York, just blowing everything up in sight. "Opportunity," he finishes. "And how will we sell that?" Viper asks him. "We put it on Stark," Hulk says. "After all, while it's true that we are the ones that had control of the machines, it was his family who built them." And then we see Stane Stark on the side of the machine that just caused all that destruction. We then jump to the Free Comic Book Day issue, and we kind of see that we've jumped ahead in time a little bit, because in this issue it's actually Doom, Iron Lad, and Captain America. Lady Sif and Thor are doing whatever else elsewhere, and what they're doing in this issue is still kind of tracking down all of the secret repositories and all the little storage bases that the Maker kept. This one also has relics of other heroes from before he manipulated everything so that they wouldn't exist. We see a lot of different things, like a dinosaur skeleton in the background. We see a little tomb with Black Bolt's costume with a noticeably smaller body, and next to it, it reads Infant King of Attilan. Captain America asks how many of these repositories there are. Tony says, "I don't know, hundreds?" Captain America then asks, "And out of all the hundreds of repositories, you're sure that he's being kept here?" So you can see that they're looking for someone very specific. We just don't know who yet. Captain America then looks through a set of binoculars and says, "Wait, I see him, this way." And just then, someone off panel says, "Known members of the Ultimates terrorist network, lay down your weapons and surrender peacefully." And they start shooting at him, and it's just these weird gray robot armed guards, it looks like. A fight automatically breaks out, and Tony says, "Oh god, it's Hand agents incoming." And it looks like the Hand, but like if it were Hydra or AIM or something like that, which is really interesting. I love when they mix little details up like that to create new characters. And then Doom explains that these are the Maker's kind of like secret police, so they're going to be hunted by this organization basically, and not only trying to save the entire universe, but also they're all fugitives now. Cap then pulls out a bottle that he was going to save for later and asks Iron Lad to light it up, and essentially creates a Molotov cocktail, throws the shield to take out all the foot soldiers, throws the Molotov cocktail directly onto a statue that's been sitting in the repository. It lights up on fire, and while fighting off the rest of the foot soldiers, Steve says, "I told you, this is how it always starts. Someone has to light the fire. Welcome back, Jim." And we realize that it is the original Human Torch, Jim Hammond, completely unrelated to the Fantastic Four. He's actually the original Human Torch from, I think, back in the 40s, 30s, something like that. So after covering both of those two issues, there's a lot of interesting stuff hidden throughout there. So first up, I want to point out that this whole devastation of New York, this whole catastrophic event, was actually the event that ended up killing Aunt May and Norman Osborn, for those of you who read the first issue of the new Ultimate Spider-Man series. So while the entire world thinks that it was Tony Stark that did this. You know, that whole anniversary scene. Everyone thinks it was just Tony Stark lashing out. They actually think that he died in that event and that no one will ever know why he did it or why it happened. They have no idea who the real culprits are. They still have yet to find out. So that's something that's bound to happen later down the line. Also, the ending of Ultimate Spider-Man #1 shows us a message from Tony Stark giving the relic in Ultimate Universe #1 and basically explaining that they sent it to him from 6 months into the future, which means that eventually we're going to see their timelines sync up and Peter is probably going to meet the Ultimates and maybe get an explanation and understand why Aunt May was actually killed and understand that it wasn't Tony Stark at all. So whenever you read Ultimate Spider-Man and you see on the first page that they say what month it is, that's why they're starting it off that way. They're counting down to when he eventually meets the Ultimates. We also got a moment in Ultimate Spider-Man #2 between Kingpin and Captain Britain, basically explaining the ladder of power. The Maker is in charge of the Secret Council. Captain Britain, a member of the Secret Council, is in charge of Kingpin, who Harry Osborn is after. It's also hinted in Ultimate Spider-Man #4 that Harry already knows about the Secret Council, and that's why he's trying to get at Kingpin. He knows he's involved with them. His motives are directly in line with the Ultimates in wanting to take down the Secret Council and the Maker. This also might have something to do with why, as Gwen Stacy mentions, they purchased the entirety of the company of Stain Stark. Also, Khonshu and Ra are the main antagonists in the Black Panther book, with Killmonger also suggesting that he knows about the Secret Council in Ultimate Black Panther #3. So then when you look at the third title of Ultimate X-Men and you see how different it is from every other X-Men book you've ever read before, you can probably guess where it's gonna go based on what the other two books are doing. Because like the ultimate villain of the X-Men book is likely gonna be the ruler of that area, right? The Secret Council had different continents, different countries split up amongst each other, and what do you know, the Asian Kingdom, the land of the sun, where Ultimate X-Men takes place, is actually ruled, as we saw in Ultimate Invasion, by the Sun Emperor, the X-Men Sunfire, and his right-hand lady, Viper from Hydra. You know, when I first saw this lineup of books to kick off the Ultimate Universe, I thought it was pretty random. You know, Spider-Man, Black Panther, and X-Men, after reading each series, I assumed it was to give like each creative team a chance to really be free and just do whatever they wanted and just do a unique book. But now, after reading everything else, after reading these one-shots, I feel like I can more clearly see the vision that Jonathan Hickman is going for. The lineup of these 3 books is very intentional because what they're doing is essentially covering each corner of the universe, one hero in each continent to take on the Secret Council member that rules that area. And what's really interesting is that these books are introducing new versions of the heroes, new versions of the villains, and then uniting them together instead of pitting them against each other. There is a point to this new Ultimate Universe. It's not about just seeing your favorite characters fight their villains in a different universe again. It's about bringing them all together and putting them on the same side of one fight, the fight against the Maker. Everyone is slowly coming together to discover this secret threat that's changed their lives, just as Thor and Lady Sif once discovered. So what is the Ultimates' role in this universe? They're the 4th book in the Ultimate line for a reason. It's also the last one to start up for a reason. I think it's pretty clear that this one is going to be the main book, the center point of the universe, the driving book that answers all the questions, brings everyone together, and gets us all one step closer to seeing these characters take on the one man that changed everything. This is going to be what the Avengers movies were to the MCU. They're going to be crucial. There is a massive overarching story happening in this universe, and the Ultimates are at the core of it. That's why this universe started off with Ultimate Invasion in the first place. Everything is going to connect and then ramp up, and we're going to see the Maker and Howard Stark again once the Maker city is unsealed. This is all going to come back, and we're going to see every step of the way unfold in the Ultimates, and I think that's amazing. The Ultimates in this universe aren't like the Ultimates before. Originally, the Ultimates were just the Avengers of the Ultimate Universe. That was literally it. These Ultimates are actual Ultimates. They're the only heroes brave enough to try and change the ultimate fate of the universe and everyone's lives in it, and change it all back to what it was before. But before then, we'll probably see the team do some more recruiting along the way, because seeing as how the current team consists of Captain America, Thor, Iron Lad, Doom, Lady Sif, and Human Torch, we know that eventually characters like Ant-Man and Wasp will be joining later because of some concept art that was revealed a while back, as well as some others that were teased at the end of the Free Comic Book Day issue. So all of that is really, really exciting. Overall, I think this universe is off to an unreal start. This universe already has so much of what the original one lacked. There is such a clear plan that's being carried out here, and it all connects, and it all just looks so good right now. They're doing everything right in my opinion so far, but again, that's just me. Let me let me know your thoughts down below. And yeah, that is the video. Thank you for watching. See you next time.